Welcome back, dear students, to this first lesson on SQL. And in this video, we are looking at the basics of SQL. That is a global introduction to SQL, and we shall all equally see the different data types to be used in SQL. So this primary video will not concern the practical part, but just an introduction to the programming language we are about to use. Structured query language, which is the full abbreviation of SQL, is a special purpose programming language designed for managing data held in a relational database management system, that is RDBMS. SQL consists of a data definition language and a data manipulation language. These are the two languages we are going to see throughout this topic. The scope of SQL includes data insert, query, update and delete, schema creation and modification, and data access control. But when it comes to Advanced Level Computer Science 795 and ICT 796, the scope of SQL will be limited to data insert, query, update, delete, and schema creation and modification, nothing related to access control. Although SQL is often described as, and to a great extent is, a declarative language, it also includes procedural elements. So as you can see, in a database management system, the SQL you provide, the DBMS, which is in direct connection with the database, provide the result in script. That is, you are writing codes which will provide to the DBMS, which interpret these SQL codes and extract data based on the SQL commands we are going to perform, and then the output is going to be given us. That is how it works. SQL is far more than a query tool, because you should know that SQL is not all about performing query. Although that was its original purpose, that is, when SQL was being introduced, its main purpose was for queries, and retrieving data is still one of its most important functions. SQL is used to control all of the functions that a DBMS provides for its users, including we have data definition. That is, SQL lets a user define the structure and organization of the stored data and relationships among the stored data items. For those of you who are used to, especially advanced level ICT students, performing relationship, you are required to carry the primary key and put the foreign key, enable refresh integrity and all the rest. But when it comes to SQL, just through the code, relationships are automatically created. We are going to look at that. Data retrieval. SQL allows a user or an application program to retrieve stored data from the database and use it. That is another function of SQL. When we talk of retrieving data, we're talking about a select command. Also, we have data manipulation. SQL allows a user or an application program to update the data by adding new data, removing old data, and modifying previously stored data. That's another important function of SQL. Here we are talking about the delete, the insert, and the update commands. We also have the access control, which we are not going to enter because it is not among the scope of Advanced Level Computer Science 795 and ICT 796. But it is important for you to know these different functions that SQL can provide for its users. SQL can be used to restrict users' ability to retrieve, add and modify data, protecting stored data against unauthorized access. Yes, it is possible using SQL. So for those of you who might continue with database management in the university, you might be given the opportunity to study this marvelous function of SQL. Also, there is data sharing. SQL is used to coordinate data sharing by concurrent users, ensuring that changes made by one user do not inadvertently wipe out changes made at nearly the same time by another user. So the problem of that we find in operating system of race condition, SQL eliminates that. That's why we say coordinate data sharing by concurrent user, ensuring that the changes made by one user do not inadvertently wipe out changes made at nearly the same time by another user. Another function is data integrity, which we know is a very vital concept when it comes to database. And for those of you who watch the videos on database, you know that when it comes to data integrity in database, there are three different types. We have the domain integrity, which stipulates that each field should be defined within a specific domain. By so it restricts the different operations that can be performed on that field and the different values that can be stored in that field. We have entity integrity stipulating that each record in a relation has to be unique, and also the most important, which is referential integrity, which ensures that the foreign key values references must be either null or contain a value from the primary key values it references. So SQL define integrity constraint in database, protecting it from corruption due to inconsistent updates of file or system failures. Now, let us look at the basic operations in a relational database. In a relational database, three basic operations are used to develop useful sets of data. I'm just going to define these different operations, but it is very important for you to know. We have selection, we have projection, and we have join. The selection, also known as the sigma operation. This operation retrieves certain records from a relation based on the user's specified criteria. Here we are talking about the select command. We have the projection operation, which extracts fields from a relation, enabling the user to create new relation that contains only the required information. That's a projection. That is, you perform a query and use that query to define a new relation. And finally, we have the join operation, which combines data from the two relations based on a common column. That's when primary key to foreign key comes into play, providing the user with more information than is available in individual relations. So these are the three basic operations for the relational database: selection, projection, and join. Take note, one might see such question in the paper one. SQL data type, what will enable us to conclude with this video. When a table is defined, every field in it must be assigned a data type, because if you don't assign a data type, the DBMS will assign for those of you who are using the graphical user interface, you see that when you don't define a specific data type for your field, the DBMS provide a default one. But in SQL, if you do not precise a data type, you are going to have an error in the code, which we are going to see. The type of a data value both defines and constrains the kind of operations which may be performed on it. The ANSI ISO SQL standard specifies the various types of data that can be stored in a SQL-based database and manipulated by SQL. Typical data types include the following. We have char, which is used for fixed length character strings, and the size in brackets specify the length of the string. So for fixed length character string, like for example phone numbers, it is very important to use char because phone numbers have a fixed length of characters. We also have country codes. Also, the other one is varchar. This data type is suitable for variable length character strings, and the size then specify the maximum length of the string. Like for example, the names. Not all names have the same length of characters. But in most of the cases, if you are not sure that a particular field contains a fixed length of characters, it is always advisable at 99% to use varchar as the data type when it comes to string fields. We have integer or int, and it is a perfect data type for whole numbers such as quantity. We have float, which is the data type for floating point numbers. We have real, data type for low floating point numbers. We have double, data type for high floating point numbers. We have date, which is used for calendar date of the form. So the form of a calendar of anyway, where we shall be having fields having as data type date. During our insertion, we are going to see how the format in which dates are being inserted into the different fields. We also have time, which is used for calendar dates. Sorry, this is just a copy and paste. It is used for time. Those fields that record that are used to save the time. Now, take note that we also have other data types which are not mentioned at the timestamp. We have Boolean, and there are many of them. But before proceeding to the different SQL basic commands, we are going to use two different DBMS in order for you to definitely understand what we are going to give you as knowledge under this video. The first one will be MySQL using the WAMP server, and the other one will be Microsoft Access. And the reason for that is that Microsoft Access is restricted to some commands and some modification, because there are some modification of commands which are correct as an SQS code, but in Microsoft Access, you are going to have an error. We are going to look at that. SQL commands can be divided into two main sub-languages where we have the data definition language, DDL. It is used to create and delete databases and its objects. These commands are primarily used by the database administrator during the building and removal phases of a database project. The most important DDL commands in SQL are we have create, alter, and drop. We are going to look at all the three commands. Data manipulation language, which is used to retrieve, insert, modify, and delete database information. So, dear student, you need to know the difference. These commands are used by database users during the routine operation of the database. The most important DML commands in SQL are we have insert, we have update, we have delete, and we have select, which are also going to be explained as you saw in the previous video where we look at the different lessons we are going to go through in this video. So I use this opportunity directly for you guys to directly understand that DTL command we are creating and deleting databases and its objects, whereas in DML we are deleting database information because you are having some paper one where they will ask you which command is used to delete a table, which command is used to delete information, which command is used. So drop is used to delete a table and to delete a database, whereas delete is used to delete an information in a table. So I'm using this opportunity to give the difference between these two commands, although we are still going to look at them. I hope you learned something new under this video. Do not forget to like, to subscribe, and to share for our community to grow. And see you in the next video where we shall fully describe the create command and the different constraints that goes with. Thank you and see you in the next lesson.